Feature Friday, all my quilting friends. Welcome back to my sewing studio. It's great to have you guys here again this week. Today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite features that's available on the robotic system when you are actually stitching out, and it is the thread break button. I tend to use this a lot because either I run out of bobbin thread because I haven't been paying attention, or sometimes my thread just breaks on my machine and I need to stop my pattern so that I can rethread my machine or replace that bobbin and then keep on going. So I wanted to make sure that everybody out there knew how this works so that if this happens to you, you can fix that thread problem and keep on going with your quilting. So this might be a little noisy for a second because I want to actually stop it while the machine is running. So I do have a pattern loaded that I started stitching, so I'm going to start it up again so that you can see where that button is in your stitch screen, and then we can stop it together and look at how to use that thread break button. I'm going to turn you guys around for a second. And as you can see, I've got some stitching started here. I've got my design up on the screen and I did stop it already. And when you stop it, you've got your thread break button and your start button. So I'm gonna hit start so that it runs again, and then we can see that pause button that brings us back to this screen here. So when I hit start, my machine's gonna just pick up where I left off stitching my design. But my screen goes back to my regular stitch screen with this giant res pause button across the bottom. If I need to stop my machine for any reason, but I don't want to stop my design, I just simply tap on the red pause button. It stops instantly, and I get my two options. Now you saw me hit the start button and it goes right back to stitching where you left off. That's really helpful if you need to stop your machine for picking up a phone call, or if the dog needs to be let out in the backyard, or you just need to take a quick break for a second and you don't want to leave your machine unsupervised. So you can easily hit start and it starts right back up where you left off. But if you hit pause because you noticed that you ran out of bobbin thread, or maybe you noticed that your top thread broke, you have this one right here that says thread break. And I tend to use this a lot because 9 times out of 10, I have not been paying attention to how much thread is on my bobbin, and I tend to run out in the middle of a row. When we have a thread break, we simply hit thread break, and it's going to tell us to move where the thread broke and press OK. And we've got a little check mark and an X over here. But the first thing we would need to do would be to rethread our machine. And because we hit thread break, it has released our machine from the robotic system so that if we need to rethread our machine or change a bobbin, we can do that. I'm going to just clip my thread here like I had a thread break, so that I can kind of move my machine out of the way. Maybe I need to replace my bobbin, so I'd have access to my bobbin here, so I'll clip my bobbin thread too. Or maybe I need access to the side of my machine so that I can rethread it. So when you hit thread break, it does release your machine from where it was stitching so that you have full access to reach either your threading area or your bobbin area to replace that. But remember, we had that message on the machine that says move to where you'd like to restart. So once I have my machine all rethreaded and ready to go, I'm going to move to where I'd like to restart my stitching. So let's say my thread broke off here where I clipped it. I've got a couple of empty holes, so maybe I missed it right when my thread broke or my bobbin ran out. So I definitely want to fill those empty holes in. And I want to go back about 3 or 4 stitches so I overlap a little bit, so everything's kind of locked into place. So I'm going to hover my needle about 3 or 4 stitches back, and that's where I would like to restart my pattern. So I've got that in place, and I'm going to hit my check mark. When I do that, I now have a little pop-up box on my robotics display that is asking me if this is where I want to restart. So it's just double checking that that is the location you want to restart your pattern at. If you need to adjust a little bit, you can always adjust a little bit again before hitting your check mark. I have it where I want it, so I'm going to hit my green check mark. My machine has taken a single stitch here so that I could pull my bobbin thread up. And that is teeny tiny. There we go, I got it. So I'm gonna pull my bobbin thread up in this place and grab my bobbin thread there. I've got my tails. I'm gonna move this back into place as close as I can get it, but the machine will adjust back to that point. So I pulled my bobbin thread up. I'm gonna hit my check mark. My machine's gonna move back into the stitching area, tie off my thread, and pick up where I left off in that design. And it's just gonna keep going like we never ran out of bobbin thread or we never broke our thread in the first place. I'm gonna hit my pause button so we can get a closer look. And you can see that I've got my tails here to clip, but we've lined back up on our design. So this is a super helpful feature because we all know that thread can be very finicky, and no matter what happens, we either have a thread break with our top thread, or we just forget to put that full bobbin in, or we've been quilting away for a long time on our quilt and we just happen to run out of bobbin thread. So remember that you have that big pause button across the bottom of your screen, whether you need to just stop your machine for a second to take a phone call, or whether you have a thread break and you need to stop your machine completely and readjust so that you can restart with a fresh bobbin and a newly threaded machine. I hope this is helpful for everybody. I know this is something that I do use a lot. I'm sure many of you out there who have had your robotic system for a while know about this and have used this too, but we've got a lot of new Butler owners, so I hope this is a helpful tip for everybody. Thanks so much for joining me, and y'all have a great day.